The house looks peaceful from the outside. The lawn is trimmed, the light comes through just right in the mornings, and the potted plant by the door gives it that soft, welcoming feel. People walk past and think, this place has it together. But inside, there's a kind of slowness. Plans get delayed, messages don't land. Laughter fades quicker than it used to, and no one's quite sure why. There's no major chaos, nothing dramatic. Just a quiet drag, like the air is too still, like something gently pressing pause on everything that matters. And often, it starts at the very place people think is safe, the entrance. Because when a plant, even a beautiful one, is placed at the front of a home without intention, without alignment, it can begin to behave like a silent barrier. Not hostile, just misplaced. It blocks more than it protects. Many homes put their plants right by the front door out of habit or for curb appeal. But without realizing, they create a wall where there should be flow. The kind of energy that welcomes opportunity, ease, and movement in and out. This is one of the most common ways people unknowingly disrupt their own prosperity. So the shift begins here. Move the plant slightly inward, to the side, or diagonally from the door. Open space in front of the threshold. And as you do it, breathe with the act, set an invitation, something as simple as, let what serves come in. Let what's ready go out, because energy is listening. It always has been. Sometimes it just needs to see a clear path home. The entrance felt beautiful, but nothing moved. Diane kept saying that to herself without knowing what she meant. The shoes were lined up. The porch swept. The air smelled like lavender from the candle she always lit before sunset. Everything looked the way it was supposed to. But somehow, the house felt paused, like it was waiting for something to happen and never quite letting it. Her brother Jake thought she was overthinking it. "It's just a plant," he said. "You're tired. You need a break." Even her neighbor, Mrs. Patel, who was usually quick to sense tension, said the house looked lovely as ever. But Diane couldn't shake the feeling, like energy was arriving at her door and just stopping. The plant was a peace lily, broad, calming leaves, a pot that matched the paint trim perfectly. It sat directly in front of the door, not blocking it entirely, but sitting just enough in the center to catch the eye. At first, she placed it there to anchor the space. But now, she began to wonder if it was anchoring too much. In Feng Shui, the front entrance isn't just for people, it's for life itself. When something sits in the middle of that passage, no matter how beautiful, it creates resistance. And resistance doesn't shout, it lingers, slowly. The mistake wasn't the plant. It was forgetting that placement carries energy, even in silence. Diane had placed it to make the house look put together. But the house didn't need a pretty photo, it needed to breathe. The shift was simple, but meaningful. She moved the plant to the left side, where it caught light without blocking flow. Not a huge leap, just a sidestep. And as she did, she cleaned the space where it had stood, wiped the floor, opened the door fully for the first time in weeks. The air felt different, not dramatic, just clearer. That night, her sleep came easier. Her thoughts stopped circling. And in the morning, her inbox held 3 new inquiries from clients she hadn't heard from in months. We often block what we're trying to attract because we're decorating, not aligning. Diane didn't need a whole redesign. She just needed to make space for arrival. And she's not alone. Across the street, Mrs. Patel had a similar habit, but in her case, it wasn't what sat in the way. It was what was growing too far, too fast. Sometimes the plant becomes the wall. Other times it becomes the noise. And that's when stillness turns into clutter and peace turns into pressure. It didn't block the doorway anymore, but now it was taking over the corner. Mrs. Patel loved her garden. Her late husband had built the front porch with his own hands, and after he passed, she poured herself into the soil like it was the only place left that listened. She planted jasmine, 1 pot at first, then 3 more. She said it reminded her of the summers in Gujarat, and the scent made her feel like something gentle was still possible. But the jasmine didn't stop growing. It wrapped around the railing, tangled into the mailbox, started creeping toward the front step like it was trying to say something. At first, everyone admired it. The scent caught in the wind made the whole block smell softer. But after a while, visitors stopped using her front path. The mailman switched to dropping envelopes near the garage. Her nephew joked it looked like a haunted fairy tale house. She didn't take offense, but she also didn't trim it. Maybe because it felt wrong to cut back something that had been planted in grief. Or maybe because when things grow out of pain, they're harder to prune. But growth, when left unchecked, becomes chaos. In Feng Shui, overgrowth at the entrance doesn't just overwhelm the eyes, it overwhelms the qi. The front of the home is meant to offer clarity, not confusion. And when plants begin to sprawl across the threshold, they don't just blur the energy, they scatter it. The mistake wasn't that she loved her plants too much. It was that she let them speak louder than the energy trying to enter her home. One morning, after tripping over a low branch, she paused, looked at the mess of green and white that once felt like memory, now shaped like avoidance. She didn't cry, she just got the scissors, and as she cut back the jasmine, she whispered thank you. Not goodbye, just thank you. That week, she said the air felt lighter. Her niece stopped by unannounced for the first time in months, and she finally found the old wind chime her husband had made tucked under the vines. Sometimes the noise isn't from what's outside. It's from what we've allowed to grow too far, too fast, because we were afraid to touch it. The energy began to settle again, and down the block, Diane was starting to notice something different too. She'd fixed the placement, but there was still a strange sense in the room. Like the plant, beautiful as it was, wasn't really doing anything. Just sitting there, taking up space, looking nice, but giving nothing back. Some plants are alive, but not awake. Diane's piece, Lily, sat quietly by the window now, out of the way, trimmed, balanced, but something about it felt hollow. Like a guest who shows up early and stands in the corner smiling, offering nothing to the conversation. It was green, clean, healthy by all appearances, but cold. It didn't hum like it used to. It didn't greet her anymore. It didn't feel like part of the house, just a decoration with no pulse. That's when she realized something no one had ever told her. Even plants need to be in relationship. Not just watered and wiped, but seen. The mistake was subtle but powerful, using the plant as an ornament, not a partner. She had placed it for beauty, cared for it like a task, but she had stopped connecting with it. No eye contact, no touch beyond utility, no moment of pause to let it be part of her space in a meaningful way. In Feng Shui, plants carry vibration. Their leaves hold memory. Their roots pick up on rhythm, voice, mood. When we ignore them, even when they're technically fine, they begin to echo that absence. A plant that isn't acknowledged becomes energetically blank. It's no longer moving qi, it's just there. Diane began to test something small. Every morning, when she watered the plant, she placed her hand gently under a leaf. Not rushed, not performative, just a breath's worth of stillness. She whispered something into the room, sometimes a word, sometimes nothing, just presence. And within days, the plant began to change. Not physically, it didn't grow faster or bloom, but the air around it felt softer, like it had re-entered the home. And strangely, Diane's mood shifted too. Fewer anxious spirals, more ease between tasks. She said it felt like the house was remembering her again. It wasn't magic. It was attention. It was respect. The kind we forget to give to quiet things. The trick is simple. Give your plant a moment each day, not a chore, but a gesture. Speak, touch, breathe near it. Don't just decorate with it, relate to it. Because energy doesn't flow through still objects. It flows through connection. And it's not just about plants. Sometimes, what sits in the wrong place or gets too wild can be fixed. But when something is alive and ignored, that's when it starts to fade. Not die, just disappear. Downstairs, Diane's mother had a different problem. She believed in elements, but not alignment. Her home was full of plants too, but not all of them were in harmony with the space around them. And that's when balance becomes contradiction. That's when good energy starts to cancel itself out. It's not just what you place, but where you place it. Diane's mother, Marion, believed in nature, always had. Her home smelled of potting soil and lemon balm, and there were plants in every corner, not for show, but for comfort. She said they made the silence less lonely. But over the years, as more pots filled the house, something else started to shift. Her sleep turned shallow, her moods got heavier, and the more plants she added, the more scattered she felt. Diane noticed it when she came over one afternoon and saw a fern placed directly in the southern corner of the living room, a space ruled by fire energy. It clashed, subtly but unmistakably. Water element plants like ferns carry cool, fluid energy. Placing them in a fire sector can dampen ambition, dim clarity, and fog up intentions. It wasn't about the plant being wrong. It was the placement, the mismatch between what the space needed and what was filling it. In Feng Shui, every direction speaks a different language. The south wants heat, light, courage. The east wants growth, renewal, family. When you place a plant into a corner without listening to that energetic dialect, it's like playing the right song in the wrong key. The notes sound fine, but the feeling gets lost. Marion didn't know this. She just wanted to fill empty spaces with something alive. But over time, her passion for healing turned into a quiet burnout. She kept adjusting furniture, repainting walls, trying to freshen the space. But the drag came from within the very life she placed with love. Diane gently helped her rearrange. They moved the fern to the east corner, where it supported wood energy and growth. Swapped a cactus into the south, sharp, upright, fire-aligned. Then opened the curtains wider to let the light touch the floor. It wasn't about big changes. It was about listening. About honoring the relationship between the object and the space. By the end of that week, Marion said she could breathe deeper. Her thoughts stopped circling, and for the first time in a long time, she opened her notebook again and started sketching, something she hadn't done since Diane was a child. Plants can support us, but when placed in energetic conflict, they mirror our own internal contradictions. What we love most can start working against us when it's misaligned. And misalignment doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like over-effort, like trying too hard to feel okay. In Jake's condo, Diane's brother, the place was sleek, modern, perfect on the surface. He had one plant, bought from a boutique shop downtown. Said it was the Feng Shui kind. But there was something strange about it. It never looked quite alive, or maybe not quite his. And that's when the final piece of the pattern started to click. Not all plants are made equal, and not everyone belongs in every home. Some plants look like good luck until you live with them. Jake didn't care about energy, he cared about aesthetics. The kind you could photograph, send to friends, post online. His condo was perfectly curated, brushed steel, matte walls, no clutter. When he finally added a plant, he picked it from a shop in downtown Toronto that promised it was Feng Shui approved. It came in a white ceramic pot with a tiny gold plaque at the base that read abundance. That was enough for him. He placed it near the window, fed it water once a week, like the instructions said, but the plant never really softened the space. If anything, it made it feel colder. It didn't die. It didn't thrive. It just sat there, expensive and silent, like a designer bag no one ever wore. The mistake wasn't in his care. It was in the assumption that because a plant is labeled lucky or abundant, it belongs in any space with anyone. But energy doesn't respond to labels. It responds to resonance. And Jake had never once touched the soil. Never once asked if this plant fit his rhythm. He had chosen a trend, not a match. In Feng Shui, not every plant carries the same vibration. Even within the same species, one may feel vibrant while another feels dull. Some carry yin, some yang. Some move energy outward. Others root it down. A plant that brings wealth to one home may bring stagnation to another, not because it's wrong, but because it's misread. What Jake had picked was a type of ornamental bamboo, bred for appearance, grown in mass, trimmed into shape. Its energy was shallow, pretty but without memory. His space needed something warmer, fuller. Something that reflected him, not just the image he wanted to present. Diane came by one evening. She didn't say anything right away, just walked past the plant, paused, and asked what it was. Jake shrugged. "It's the lucky one," he said. "Said so on the label." She smiled gently and handed him a small rosemary cutting from her own home. "Try this instead. Touch it once a day. Don't ask it to perform, just notice it." He didn't think it would change much, but within 2 weeks, something softened. He cooked more, laughed louder, stopped skipping songs halfway through. And one morning, without planning to, he tossed the ornamental bamboo in the compost. It turns out, sometimes the most powerful shift isn't adding what looks right. It's removing what doesn't feel right, even if it came with a shiny promise. So the real work isn't just in planting, it's in choosing. Choosing a living thing not because someone told you it brings luck, but because when you touch it, something in you exhales. That's the plant that belongs. That's the one that stays. And maybe that's the quiet wisdom plants have always tried to teach us. That energy doesn't come from appearances. It comes from care, from placement, from presence. Sometimes the smallest shift, moving a pot, trimming a leaf, choosing what truly belongs, can unlock a change we didn't even know we were waiting for. So if your space has felt a little stuck, a little silent, try listening differently. It might not be the plant. It might be how it's being received. Thank you for being here, for slowing down, for noticing, for believing that even the quiet things matter. If this brought something gentle to your day, feel free to subscribe and stay close. There's more waiting, softly, in the next video. See you soon.